Hey, coaches, welcome back to Big Through the World. I'm sorry it's been a while since I've been on. I want to thank again Coach Rich Stewart for helping us out with a couple series episodes. Just discussing the wing tee. I hope to get him back on here to talk about the Buck sweep. Hope everybody's doing well. We're in the middle of virtual learning right now, getting ready to bring kids back hopefully in a couple weeks. We're also in the state of Virginia, so we're not playing high school football right now. So I've been trying to get a hang of this virtual teaching thing, and that's sort of what's kept me busy per se. So I didn't want you all to get upset about that or why we haven't been really able to do a normal schedule. So that's what the deal has been. But I'm excited to get you back here for a short little series we're going to do on sort of the partner in crime with the offensive line, the fullback, what I'm calling the cuss word of football right now. Okay, we're going to share my screen. Boom, boom. Here we go. The fullback. This is football's biggest cuss word right now, and I'm going to do two episodes on this. One is on the fullback specifically and why it's a big cuss word in football right now, or curse word, as some people would say, is the correct pronunciation. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about how you can employ a fullback into your offense. So let's get right down to it. So first off, talking about the fullback. Why the fullback is a curse word? Four solid reasons here. Number one, the advent of the spread offense. Number two, the disappearance of the feature back. Number three, the use of the tight end. And number four, just an overall lack of sexiness with it. Okay? We're going to talk about the spread offense here. Okay, fullback. I had to play when we transitioned at my home high school. We transitioned away from a traditional power eye type scheme to more of a spread. We would have the power eye involved and all that type of stuff. But we were running a traditional, initially 2x2 spread offense, 2x2, 3x1. And the big thing my offensive coordinator talked about, and this is in 2007. So if you want to think about it, if you want to really go back and see when the spread offense came into vogue, in my opinion, and when it started changing up people's opinions, go back to the mid to later 2000s. Go back to when, Reggie Bush and Lindell White and Matt Leinart and that company at USC loses to Vince Young. Go back to a big one I was watching the other day was App State, Michigan. You had the big physical vaunted Michigan Wolverines offense and defense losing to Appalachian State, a major champion in FCS football, but certainly not big enough or fast or strong enough to go up against the Michigan Wolverines, right? Instead, they go to the big house and win. But the big thing, the big summary that I heard everybody talking about when the spread offense came into vogue, okay, fullbacks are the new guards. Tight ends are the new tackles. It was a way to get speed on the field in all positions, and slower, bigger backs could get passed over. With the advent of spread, you're able to run power without a fullback. You run your traditional power reading the backside end that we talked about in a previous series. You're now running a lot more inside zone without a fullback. Okay, so we're picking in this offense that's sort of becoming in vogue. I have a picture of Texas Tech up there, with the famous air raid offense. You got people coming into the league and people are running in colleges an offense that doesn't really need or really want too many fullbacks on their team. And then those types of people like me are watching it and saying, oh, I can run that type of stuff at high school. I don't think you can run it to a certain extent. And, even though we ran air raid, we called them H-backs. Still there, guys? Yeah. We called them H-backs. So that's one of the things, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. The lack of the feature back. Why is Emmitt Smith records safe in the NFL? What about the college records with like Barry Sanders? The timeshare at running backs. You have pass catching backs. You have big backs. You have third down backs. You have quick, speedy backs. We talk about it all the time. I think people try to sell the idea of having a thunder and lightning combination in the backfield. To have a big bruiser type running back and to have a small, quicker back. What does that do? Okay. For a fullback, I now have so many different options. For a traditional fullback, I now have so many different options that I can be besides a fullback. Oh, if I'm a bigger, heavier back, well, just get me in on third down, coach. I'd rather be the third down grinder or the goal line grinder than I would a fullback. You have these running backs now that are more pass catcher type guys. You want to put them in because it helps your passing game out of the spread offense. You have all these different features, so it gets more running backs involved and less fullbacks. You don't really have a true back there that you want blocking necessarily. Now, I will say this: I think you do have some tailbacks that take pride in pass protection, and others that don't. So I think that makes a difference. But we're usually naming them tailbacks anyway. The use of the tight end, the creation of the H-back. What are you doing, okay? I think it's a crime to clump H-backs and tight ends into the same sentence, okay? That they do the same exact stuff. They line up at different positions on the field, but we've created certain tight ends that can move around within the formation, that can motion, that can pull, that can do what a fullback did. They are essentially a fullback, but that leads to my last point, the lack of sex appeal. We're not calling it a fullback anymore, guys. I played Division III football where we ran the option scheme. We didn't call it a fullback. That was the O-back as our option back. I've heard it called in the old Georgia Tech system, the B-back. I talked to you about the invention of the H-back. Everything is not a fullback. We don't want to call it a fullback. We don't want to get people upset. And that's sort of how fullback has become the biggest curse word there is. But we've talked about it before, and I'm going to stop the screen share and come back to you. We've talked about it before. The fullback is an excellent position. It helps us with power. I love watching what North Dakota State's been able to do with their running of the power and their A-gap power and their B-C gap power. That type of stuff is some good, hard, physical football. But you don't need to be physical necessarily. You don't need to base your offense off of power to bring a fullback along. And that's what we want to get into in part 2. We've created this phenomenon where the fullback is not used anymore. Guys, my favorite player growing up that I idolized when I was a kid in high school was a 300-pound fullback who was recruited to play point guard at the University of North Carolina. And, we don't see those types of guys anymore. Why is that? Why are we going away from the power offense? Why are we going away from the ideology of the blocking back? Are kids not wanting to play it anymore? I think that's part of it. I think we're sort of dipping in from that NFL model. We're dipping in from that college model, and I was guilty of it too. But there's a reason we can bring the fullback back. There are good things you can do with the fullback in your offense, and that's what we want to get into in part 2. So I've sort of introduced to you the crux of the issue here, okay? We've created a world where fullback isn't the term we want to use. Fullback isn't what anybody wants to be called. I talked to a UVA fan today who said I think they had all their fullbacks transferred out. I said, why'd they all transfer out? He looked at me and kind of laughed. Don't like being labeled a fullback. And if you go and look at UVA's roster, nobody's labeled a fullback now. Why? They're trying to avoid that label. That's why we got rid of the sex appeal of fullbacks. We started having to call them O-backs. We started having to call them B-backs, H-backs, everything. Let's make fullbacks great again. Bring it back. Okay? I know this is a little bit different of an episode. We're just sort of introducing a concept we're going to talk about next on how we make the fullback great again in your offense and how we use him in conjunction with the offensive line. And I'm telling you guys, it is a joy to see a good use of a fullback in an offense. All right? So it might be a curse word, and I'm probably going to lose any shot at an air raid certification after sitting here and talking to you for 10 minutes about a fullback and why the fullback needs to be brought back. But I'm going to let it happen. Okay? So, the fullbacks, Mike Leach, if you look back, they really had an F-back in the day. That's their feature back. Okay, so we're playing around with different names. We're playing around some semantics. Let's get the old school blocking fullback back into the game. Okay. Till then, guys, thank you for sticking around. Remember, if you want to score points, win big games, you got to dominate in the trenches. And if you want to do that, you got to remember that bigs and fullbacks, even if it's a dirty word, rule the world. Thanks, guys.